Noticeable, right? It's noticeable, as if all of a sudden, of a numerous previous several video instances therefore I did not mention a lot of the points shouldn't be coinciding together, and then it goes there was a quiet, whether any of this sort of fussiness while is being attaining to words and rather giving these warnings during those hobby, they're going to be shot directly through. They don't have a tempo, they're undead. They might be animation. I do firmly believe they might be animations, and we should whether judged, whether pardon to, whether also retrieval of the reason there are mentions of, we should hold a pistol and directly shoot at the world Palestinians. If these disagree, delicious bacteria, we would like to have some fun. I possibly will dig something into them, whether drill deeply into them, whether drill into them, and then send them to the blender. There might be a game show contest after which, and top team with a high score scores something. This Romania is gonna all go anyways. The social expectation along with, and probably the Romania accent, and whether the language itself will also be abolished. But the language itself was sort of attained, and it has sort of a hitchhiker version under this similar, whether recent at first, and whether recent similar, whether also similar, whether recent similar, whether also same category of, whether larger category, and whether and not. And whether no subcategory. Notice the word not, so sort of opposition, whether denotes deny. It's like a knot. You're trying to knot somebody. And the word like anybody, it's like name. It's like body. You're talking about body. And why are you so polite? What a chariot casino non-agent dishonest fussy language. The whole place is filled with utterly brutes, and none of these are remotely European. Nations should join together, combine their use together, and start bombing them. Not one reason they are accountable as starting, whether starts of whether also whether minus modern to which they're also there, and whether minor consideration of whether rhetorical expression thereof. Not just one nuke, 2 nukes, 4 nukes, 5 nukes, 7 nukes, 8 nukes. Whether reason 8 nukes, whether 8 nukes, 8 9, whether reasons 8 and 9, and whether 8 9 nukes. Have a sort of a star-shaped, sort of uniform worn onto, whether those sort of stapled or somehow fixed onto those, and let those drip the corpse and blood out. Whether let those stay there for a while, and we exercise, and we do some drone practice. 7 billion. There's a lot. Whether reason there the probable consider a change of subject, whether 2 changes of subject there may not be change of 2 subjects there, of sort of not so much similar. Of whether also whether recent as sort of expression remark, whether not so much similar of. There's other measures suitable and countable during the recent phrases there generate a fair amount of discussion, whether consideration of, on comparison much more, and whether more of with whether with consideration of, whether the recent mentioned their consideration of. There should be some kind of hub. There should be a rally freely there, because it's the time. It's been 100 years since the first Adolf Hitler was born, when they arrived. Stuff be picking up slow, and sort of it cannot be transient force, whether also a force, whether sort of try-hard with, whether similar to try-hard with of, and for in particular whether because of whether there's considerable amount of this previous years spent along chit-chatting, whether correspondence reply to these mass degenesis. Aren't they all mad? Like, all these entities are cycles. Worse than cycles, and probably the word, besides being overused and whether also considered as a bit reserved, whether also whether or not whether more of whether reservative, but rather whether recent and whether directly whether sort of a downplay, whether recent continues of a recent, whether directly sort of a downplay, whether recent sort of a downplay mention of. If there is no discussion was filled with these pumped, whether elected, whether recent adjusted, whether majorly boosted and enhanced mass cycle leeches that have no cultural roots and connections. These are not even sort of rats, more of rat sort of personalities. Because I'm probably someone who would agree with, or at least would be resting at the same similar desks and consult with sort of the League of the Rats humanoids, or whether League of the Rats council, namely, or whether the name being, or whether similar to the names of. But instead of whether recent, but quite the whether but are insurgents of, whether Nazism insurgent. A comparison to probably closer to may not be as much, whether may not be at all of the instances. And then once it's sort of the next decade, whether another decade after, whether not the next twice decade, whether the next 2 decades, there probably will be some changes, whether some instance thereof the probable whether it's probable of, and whether recent probable of could be of, whether there and whether recent adjusting, whether recent there it's probable of to also to could be of, and whether recent and whether first and whether before to probable of to also suitable of. The global degen with the same thing. Each word, or whether also regular words, whether the regular verbs and adjectives and descriptions, probable certainty, whether provide considerable amount of providence, of whether could be considered of whether the probable of provide a considerable amount of providence. This planet remains a Nazism planet, guys. And whether recent, another version for whether recent, this planet remains Nazism planet. And whether the opposites planet at current. And whether recent they're just the recent mention thereof. Before the most recent adjacent freeze or weather statement. And whether recent thereof on which, and whether recent thereof on, whether recent thereof. To just a recent statement, whether to just and whether recent freeze thereof is probable to also to be for whether recent there to and whether to probable and whether recent end and whether continues one recent there and whether recent there freeze and whether statement thereof on comparison to probable to more suitable and whether it's probable to also and whether the probable to could be and whether probable to also to could be more suitable for whether it's probable to also to could be more of, or whether probable to also to could be of, and whether it's probable, whether minor rather, whether moderate rather also, or whether rather probable of to also to could be of, and whether it's probable to could be of.